Aloha guys, welcome to another edition of Atort Tutorials. Today I am going to give you a little 101 on editing photos in Snapseed on your iPhone. So without further ado, let's get editing. So I'm going to go into my Snapseed app, and to me it's a really nice go-to, simple, intuitive app. I really kind of fell in love with it. I don't think it's, it lacks a few things, but overall, for how easy it is to use, definitely my go-to app. So without hesitation, let's start editing something other than my already edited cute little bird Sammy shot. So I'm going to go to open and I'm going to look for an iPhone shot. I'm going to take one that I actually shot when I was eating Chinese food earlier. So say, for example, this shot of food, which are some Chinese veggie dumplings. Now on the bottom, so again, the first thing you need to know is how to open your image, which is in the top upper left corner. So you go over here, top upper left, go to open from device, camera roll, or wherever you have your images saved. I'm going to go and touch, and then it will populate. So that's step one, knowing how to open your image. Now on the bottom, you have all these different looks. So they're presets. You can cycle through, see if one of them works. Sometimes I use the pop or the smooth a little bit, but I usually still fine tune with the tool section area. So really with an iPhone shot, a lot of times what I feel it's lacking is a little bit of exposure and a little bit of saturation, meaning color. So I'm going to go into the tools, just tap on it, and you see it's highlighted with blue. And the main part that I go into, I use a little bit of everything, but not so much like the drama or vintage or HDR. So I'm going to go into tune image. This is basically the most important thing for color correcting your images. So if you touch the screen, so right now I'm touching the screen. Whoop, no, I'm not. Yeah, there you go. So I'm touching the screen or tapping the screen. And if you long press and hold it, you can scrub up, which will bring it down, and vice versa, and scrub down, which will scroll back up to like brightness. So as you, it's really one of those apps where it may seem kind of confusing, but the minute you start using it a few times, it's so intuitive, it's just second nature. You just kind of go in, you don't even think about it. That's why when I actually had to explain it, I almost had to think for a second because it's just something you do so naturally and instinctively that I had to think for a moment. So again, touch the screen, and we're going to go into brightness. I'm going to brighten this up a little bit, especially with food. Food is better when it's brighter and on the lighter side. It looks more appetizing. It's kind of Martha Stewart-ish as far as look and feel. So I'm going to lighten it a little bit. I'm going to take my saturation then, and I'm going to increase it a little bit. So it's giving it a little bit of life. Shadows, let me see. It depends. Sometimes shadows can be nice if you tighten them up and darken it a little bit. It gets a little bit more contrasty. But I'm going to kind of leave it, probably around there. And maybe I can bring the brightness up a tad bit more. And sometimes, and again, these are all things you can play with. Brightness is going to be obviously brighter or darker. Contrast is going to be exactly that. It's going to kind of make it look a little bit more gritty if you go too much. But usually contrast I don't go too crazy with. I kind of usually leave it, to be honest with you. Ambiance or however you want to pronounce it, I don't touch too often. You can always, again, play with each thing. Obviously, if you don't like it, just zero it back out. So I'm going to zero that back out. Oop. So you can see on the top, there's a little bar. So if I scrub to the left, it's going to go negative. And if I scrub to the right, it's going to go positive. And that's with all of this. So warmth, a lot of times, I'll kind of adjust, making the image a little bit cooler or warmer in color tone. Right there, I'm gonna leave it where it's at for now. So I'm going to click out of this. In the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see a little check mark. That's going to click out and just commit the commands we just made within this panel. And on the top upper right corner, there's a little button, a little kind of square with that's going to be your before and after. So this is before as shot. That's going to be after. So it's a very subtle tweak, but again, we're kind of just doing a little, once over on some of these tools, or at least for a basic edit. Details is another thing. This is sharpening. And again, sharpening usually normally you should always sharpen at the last step. So whenever you're processing out a file for print or processing out files or retouching, sharpening is always the last move you do. So structure and sharpening. Structure has a little bit more bite to it, but something like this where there's kind of texture in the dumpling, you can kind of get away with a little bit of it, and it just kind of crunches it up a little bit. So I'm going to, again, take the structure to 28 and stop there. And you can do little moves too. And again, now you can revert on the top upper, or where this little arrow is. You can also go and undo a command and keep on going back in the chain, or I can redo now. You could also revert. You can view your edits. So again, that's just something to be, this info is going to give you the metadata. And then this little button is going to give you little tutorials and settings. Not too much for the setting. Let me see, format and quality. I'm going to go JPEG 100%. And that's it for that. But if we go to tools, you have a curves palette. So we can go and there's some curve presets. Soft contrast, which actually looks nice to me. Hard contrast, not too bad, but a little much. The soft contrast is a little bit more subtle. And again, with retouching an image, you don't want it to be too much. Now, I say that because I do it a lot, but it's mainly because that's this type of look I like. I like really poppy, vibrant, over-the-top stuff, but that's my personal style. I can easily retouch or color correct an image to look very subtle and natural. I just choose to not do that usually. But again, I'm going to stop with soft contrast, and these little buttons on the bottom, X is going to just get me out of this completely. This little button to the right is going to give me the different channels. So it's going to give me the curve options. So I got the RGB curve, which is controlling this contrast curve. I got the red channel, so I can play with that, add more red or take away red. I don't know how to actually zero this back out. I'm just going to drag it up. But like I said, you see you got the green, you got the blue, so you could actually play around here too. If you want to maybe cool down the image a little bit, take away some of the yellow. I think the yellow kind of adds to the ambience of the restaurant. But regardless, we'll leave it there. And I think this is going to give you, again, the presets. This is going to show you the curve grid and remove it. And we're going to and again, up at the top of right-hand corner, we can depress this little box that you see. You won't see me depressing it, but I am. And it's showing the before and after from the last set of moves. We have white balance. So again, scrub on the screen to the left to make the temperature warmer or cooler. Warmer to the right, cooler to the left. You have auto white balance down on the bottom left. You have this little equalizer kind of set of bars where you can go to, now I'm going to touch the screen and you can go up and down, and then you can go left or right. So I can go temperature, tint, and you could play with those settings as well. I'm going to get out of that, but just be familiar with all of this. As I said, this is one of those apps where you just got to play with it, and eventually you'll see how easy it is to work with. I'm not going to go over everything in this tutorial. I just want to touch on a few of the basics, because otherwise it just gets too long and I don't have it in me right now to do it. It's almost 10 o'clock at night. But one of the good things, like Selective, is something to really have fun and play with. If I tap Selective, I can just touch the screen and add a point, and you see there's a point that was dropped. If I grab the screen, I'm going to touch it with two of my thumbs. First off, you can just grab that point or touch the point with one thumb or finger. I mean, thumb seems to be more intuitive. and you can kind of grab it. Say I want to, let me see, lighten the beer a little bit or something. I can put that point and you'll see a crosshair, and that crosshair will illuminate the color that you're on. So if I want to just affect that, that orangish kind of beer and lighten it up, I can just scrub my two thumbs, and that area that's red is the only area that's affected. But you'll see some area in the back that's being affected too, because I have a big space that I'm grabbing. So if I kind of scrub my thumbs together, I have two thumbs on my screen right now. And if I kind of pinch them together, I'm going to make that little circle smaller. And then I can go on the screen and I can adjust the brightness. I can take the saturation down if I want. Looks a little bit more natural. You can add a little structure, for example, which I'm not going to do. But as you see, all these little things are really intuitive and really helpful in making your image look better. I can go into another thing, and this is going to be the last thing I'm going to touch on for the moment, this little healing tool, which to me is really great. Now I'm grabbing, whoops, shoot, I got to undo that. What you see, or what you do, I should say, if I take my two thumbs again, I'm holding my phone with both hands, so I kind of have it cupped in my hands, and I'm going to take my thumbs, put them on the screen together, and then pinch out. And if I do that, you're going to see this little circle. So you want to get the circle, pardon me, basically the size of what you're trying to remove. So now if my circle's right around that little dot over the soy sauces, I can just take my finger and just touch, and voila, it's gone. And if I mess up, this little left bottom on the bottom of the screen, this little left arrow I can touch, and that will undo the command. And then I can try again. And then see if I want it again, if I could redo it and undo it by these two arrows. And again, this may not be necessary on this image, but I'm using it as an example. So see if this is too small really for this dot. So you want to be a little bit larger, somewhere in that vicinity. And boom, it's gone. But that's kind of the rule for this guy. And you see what I'm doing. I can go through this whole thing really fast and effectively. And it may not seem like a lot, but it definitely helps. And again, these little arrows on the bottom, the left one is to undo and the right one's the redo. Now I'm going to hit the check mark and say this one right here. See this little spot right where I'm zooming in on, where the little blue box is kind of by, that soy sauce. Can go in the tools again, go to healing, pinch in with both my thumbs, and just click out of there and fine tune a little bit more. And again, mind you, I'm doing this on my iPhone. I'm not bringing in the Photoshop using my spot healing brush or clone stamp. I'm just doing it with my fingers on my phone. So again, I can hit export now and save a copy. So I'm not saving over the original. And if we want to go and see the difference, so here is before, and then here is after. I know that's not necessarily here. I'm going to save this in my favorites. Hold on a second. We can go look at some shots of Hawaii. I'm going to put this in one of my favorites as well. Go to my favorite album, and now we have a little easier way. So this is before, as shot with my iPhone XS, and after with a little bit of Snapseed. So as you see, this doesn't look bad, but this just looks a little bit more polished, a little bit more pro, almost as if it came from a point and shoot or a little Sony RX100 Mark V or something. I mean, it looks that good in reality. And I'm looking at it on a 27-inch 5K iMac, and it looks good. I mean, it's an iPhone. It's a little teeny thing you carry with you at all times. So again, just know that there's some power in what you have in your pocket and your hands every single day, and take advantage of it and start playing and maybe experiment a little bit more in Snapseed. I hope this inspires you to shoot a little bit more, and feel free to leave some comments. I am just starting out with this, so be patient. Hit the subscribe button. Help me keep motivated to go forward, and I appreciate the love and support, and always aloha. Bye.